It's me. Y'all on level 1, I'm level 3. Pounding on the table for my team. Every night I flex. I'm making big moves. That's a big move. Big money, big move.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pounding the Table. Very excited here for our guest today, Anthony Scaramucci, aka the Mooch. Anthony had worked in the past at Goldman Sachs, investment banking, equities, private wealth management between 1989 and 1996. After he left Goldman Sachs, he had started Oscar Capital Management, where he founded then investment firm Skybridge Capital, where he is the founder there today. You also may know him from under the White House communications director under President Trump. Most recently, he's been started in his own podcast, Mooch FM, which everyone should definitely check out. Had a chance to listen to a few of the shows prior to this interview and actually genuinely really enjoyed them. So welcome to the table, Anthony. Before we get started, I just mentioned Mooch FM. So would love to, before we get into some of the...
You didn't mention I got fired from the White House. You guys are like polite guys. But I mean, everybody knows I got fired. It wasn't that big of a deal. And the guy that fired me, General Kelly, and I are good friends. So, I mean, life goes on, right? What are you going to do? Exactly. But if Trump goes to run again, I got to get back involved. We got to bash his skull in because he's a anti-democratic, seditionist, and traitor. But so, we'll worry about that when the time comes. But I predict on your podcast, the orange maniac will not be running for president again. Okay. All right, but let's go. What do you want to talk about?
You heard it here first. So yeah, I was going to say, we're going to get into
no chance the orange maniac could run, especially after he's disgraced himself with Vladimir Putin. And he's got criminal charges that are probably going to be dropped on him because he's president, but still there's enough there that's going to stick, that's going to slow him down.
Love it. Well,
but people like him, I mean, the guy could eat like 26 cannolis and 75 like large pies and live to be 200, right? That evil, only the good die young. Trump will live to be like 110. You know what I mean?
Yeah, soda can a day. Like the oldest person in the world just drank a couple liters of soda every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Made it to like 130.
These people don't die. You know that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they stay on, man. They
like the song. Only the good die young.
They drag it out, man.
Love it. So we'll get into some of these questions. Definitely have to ask you about what it was working under Trump there for sure. But Mooch FM, real quick, if we could touch on that. I know, would love to hear, why you started it, and how that's going for you right now. A little bit more about what it is.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, I had no plans to start a podcast. What happened to me is I walked into a radio show. I was fired from the White House in July of 2017. Contemporaneous to that, my wife had filed for a divorce on me. So in addition to personal problems that we were having, she hated Donald Trump almost as much as Melania hates him. I mean, right up. And so we were really fighting. I got fired from the White House. We were in a divorce court, literally. I walked out of the divorce court with her and I was like, hey, could I meet you later today? And I said, come on, you love me. I love you. Let's bury the hatchet, go to a marriage coach or something like that. Let's put this thing back together. So we made a commitment to each other to do that. We dropped the divorce. And I was in LA 2 weeks later doing an interview like this. The radio host looks at me and says, wait. Is that your wife? I said, yeah. Well, I read in the New York Post that you guys were getting divorced. I said, yeah, we patched it up. They never put the patch up in the post. They put the wipe out in the post, right? So he's like, well, he goes, you're an interesting interview, but I would really like to interview her. Is that cool? I said, yeah, no problem. So he brought her into the radio studio and he's interviewing her. And then he invites me in. He's interviewing both of us. And it turned into a podcast called Mooch and the Missus. And the podcast took off. It was like very fun to do. It was very popular, lots of downloads. But we're talking lip gloss, MAC makeup. Of course, I wear more makeup than the two of you on most days, okay, because of my television appearances. And, Deirdre decided she didn't want to do it during COVID because, you can't talk about all this superficial nonsense and
right.
Which champagne to buy and which Mexican restaurant is better than the other and how to make the guac right. She didn't think it was appropriate. So we dropped it. And so the group that had it said, okay, well, what about you interviewing people, and we'll call it Mooch FM. So we transitioned it to Mooch FM. Maybe we'll bring the missus back at some point.
Yeah.
But like you guys, it's reasonably popular. I get a lot of downloads every week. I'm a big book reader. So the books in my office here are actually things that I read. So it's not like I'm just showcasing them.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of fun authors that come on. I bring on national security expertise at Governor Christie, H.R. McMaster, David Petraeus. I mean, I have a whole list of different guests that we bring on, but also Bitcoiners, macroeconomists. I'm an eclectic person. And so we talk about anti-aging. We talk about food. We talk about sports. I've had Bobby Valentine on. I've had sports owners on.
There was the one you just talked about with like life after death. I found really interesting.
Aria Jaeger. So she's a spiritualist. She believes in reincarnation. She wrote a great book. So this is an example. The book, I think, got recommended to me by somebody. I read the book. So I reached out to her on social media. This is a big lesson for your people listening to you guys on Pound the Table. Use the social media as a tool. I am blown away at the people I can reach over Twitter, over Instagram, where I can DM them and say, hey, I read your book. The book is great. Would you, and all next thing you know, they're sitting in my podcast studio or on my Zoom, and we're talking about stuff, so use that as a tool and don't be bashful. Remember what Ben Franklin once said: if you want a friend, ask him for a favor. Yeah. Because what ends up happening is they'll likely do the favor. Now there's a reciprocity circle created and a positive feedback loop, and you're off to the races.
Love that. Yeah. Worst thing you can ever get is a no. So always just ask whatever you want. So very cool, man. I mean, I love having you on already. Really
what's up with the millennial beards though? I mean, what's up with that? You guys all want to look like middle relievers for the Boston Red Sox. So.
Working from home, man.
My son's 29. He's got the beard. I mean, what's up with the beard?
I don't have a choice. I'm Moroccan, so this thing comes back in a day and a half, no matter what. So
yeah, so that's how you look after you shave, right? So what's up with you, Avi? What's up with
this? Is a 5 o'clock
Jewish, man. You know, and it's I think
you're trying to look like a rabbi. Just be honest. You trying to look like a rabbi? You going ortho?
I think it's more of the working from home. Now I'm actually, I didn't mean to get into this, but I'm, now in the crypto space myself. So I'm not, necessarily.
Yeah. So this is
the audience is kind of there.
You guys are all, it's like, diet by grunge, fashion by grunge, okay. It could be, you could look like Steve Bannon, which is like contemporary hobo, right?
Right, there you go.
With a slight alcoholic blotchy twinge. You know what I mean?
You guys are
all, I don't get you guys.
I love it. Yeah. I'm on the same side here. So,
all right. Sorry, Ant. I'm just, firing it up. All right, go ahead.
You're good.
Ask me anything you want, brother.
I love it. Yeah. So we, on the podcast, we get a ton of questions. People are always asking stuff, but we have time to kind of figure out what's going on. So I wanted to know how you prepared yourself and the president, to handle questions from the press, because I'm sure you get a bunch of left field questions all the time there. So must have been definitely difficult. And I guess to add on that too, what book or article would you recommend to someone in the field, maybe to get a good handle on how to do it besides just natural hustle?
So you're talking about communication and podcasting, or the presidency in the office?
When you were in the
I'd like to hear about the president, like how because that's way different.
The best book is actually by a controversial guy who's now passed. His name is Roger Ailes. He was the president of Fox News. He wrote a book 30 years ago called "You Are the Message," and I think it was an incredibly well written book about you. And about how don't be somebody else. You're not Jack Kennedy or Richard Nixon, but you're Avi and Tony, and that you have your own personality, and make sure you express the realness of your personality. Ultimately will drive your popularity in your podcast or your media presentations, is not trying to look or sound like somebody that you're not, but just being who you are. I thought that was probably the best book that I read about communications, communications, meaning television communication, right, or outreach like this on a podcast. But to talk about the president and to be fair to him, because him and I want to punch each other's lights out today at this point in our lives. But to be fair to him, he is an incredibly gifted communicator. Okay. To say otherwise because you don't like him is not to be objective, because here's a guy that went from being a reality television star and a real estate developer 18 short months later into the American presidency. So if you want to discount that, you can, but then you're not being objective. And so he has a smash mouth shock jock. He's the Howard Stern of presidents. Okay. He's coming at you with his verbal fists, banging you in the face and the neck to get you to listen to him. Okay. So what happens with Donald Trump, he's a verbal rubbernecker. He's speaking, you slow down your channel changing because you want to rubberneck his verbal car crash. Okay, that's Donald Trump. So there was no coaching of Donald Trump. There was no way to communicate with Donald Trump that led to anything positive. So if I wrote down something for him, he went into the Rose Garden, and let's say I said the accurate number, 86, we have an 86% success rate on this, blah, blah, blah. He would go into the Rose Garden and say, our success rate is 95%. Then he'd come back into the Oval Office, and or we were like watching it on TV in the study. I'm like, well, why didn't you just say 86? I mean, that's the right number. 95 sounded better. And I'm like, well, you're going to get 4 Pinocchios tomorrow in the Washington Post. Why do we need that? You don't know what you're talking about. So ultimately, he liked the puffery. He liked the promotion. He was absolutely uncoachable by anybody. Okay. Moreover, Stormy Daniels told me that he had una poca pichadel. I'll translate that for you into Yiddish. He had a tiny schmeckel. Okay. So when I was on the Bill Maher show, he told me it was like a little tiny schmeckel. It looked like a shiitake mushroom. I almost threw up in my mouth, by the way. And I was like, okay. And my wife was there. I said, okay, I haven't been to a Japanese restaurant in 3 years since Stormy Daniels told me on the Bill Maher show, una poca pichadel, right? So that explains everything, right? Because you could reverse engineer the whole personality into that, right? Trump has heard 4 words that no guy can survive. You want to hear the 4 words?
Loved it.
Oh, I know what it is. Go ahead.
Is it in yet? Is it in yet, Donald? You know what I mean? The poor guy, right? So this is a guy, big buffoon, okay, has to bank strippers and prostitutes because nobody can feel the action. You know what I mean? And so that's why he's in a constant state of overcompensation. And he's also, he's probably got like a learning disability where he can't read. So he's in a insecurity trap in his own mind intellectually. So can't talk to anybody. And if anybody looks or feels smarter than him, he'll either fire them or steamroll them, right? A real leader, an A leader hires A+ people and then listens to them and tries to orchestrate. A B or a C leader hires D's and F's. You see what I mean? So there was no way I was lasting. I told Steve Colbert, I said, well, I didn't think I was going to get blown out like a cart before the carton of milk spoiled in the refrigerator. I didn't think that was going to happen. But I didn't think it was going to last a long time. I told the Oxford Union, I thought the gig was going to be 30 to 60 days because of the mania and the craziness that was going on. And then, of course, I said something about Steve Bannon, which is not true. Right? I said Steve was sucking his own dick in his office. He's also somebody, no way he can fucking do that. And so the reporter like runs out. I mean, the guy was such a jerk off, right?
Yeah.
So he's a guy I knew. My father knew his father, who's an Italian kid from Long Island. And, he had to betray me like that. That's fine. It's my fault. I never blamed it on anybody else. I owned it.
Yeah.
But you asked the question about answering questions, right? And so I only had one press conference. I think there was like 25 million people that saw it, according to some of my friends in the media. It was 2:15, 3:00 in the afternoon, press conference on July 21st, 2017. So it was almost 5 years ago. I got to the podium and I took questions. What was interesting is the hour before Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I walked into her office. There were 40 people in the office. I'm like, what are these people doing? She said, well, they're here to brief you on the press conference. I said, brief me on what? She said, well, this guy's Afghanistan. That's North Korea. This guy's on the economy. This guy's on the Russian sanctions. And I looked at them. I said, okay, guys, get out of the office. Okay. There's no way you're going to fill my head with all of that data before I go up there. What I'm going to do is listen to the questions. I'm going to speak authentically to people. And by the way, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. I got to get back to you. Let me get your name and let's have a conversation when the press conference is over. Let's go to the next question. And so I did that for 40 straight minutes. When I got off the podium, I was walking back upstairs to the Oval Office. My phone was ringing, and it was a well-known guy in the Republican Party circles. And he said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You can't talk like that to the press. You're in Washington. You're talking from the White House. You can't tell the truth to the press.
Right.
What the hell are you doing? I've got congressmen. I've got aides up here on the Hill. They're like, what information do you have on this guy? We got to get rid of this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. There's an allergy to the truth in Washington, and they like the numbness of the dishonesty. They like the numbness. You turn it on, you hear blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's another person just speaking spin in Washington.
Yeah.
They like that. That's comforting to them because they can keep their machinations and their game going.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me for that advice, you answer the question that someone asks you and you listen to the goddamn question. And if you don't know the answer, you say, I don't know the answer. You don't have to be the genius on everything because you're not.
No, I think it's
nor am I, by the way.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, you touched on Napoleon, a little bit of Napoleon Complex, the authenticity, he's
a tall guy. He's a big fat son of a bitch, and he's very tall. But he had I don't know what that is. It's like a, tiny.
We're gonna have to learn how to say that correctly.
He's not a Napoleon. It's a different thing with the Napoleons. A Putin's more like a Napoleon. You know what I mean? Putin's got the whole height issue, and he's got to overcompensate with the missiles. All that shit. These people are fucking crazy. I mean, come on, man.
No, I hear you.
Here's the problem with the Earth, okay? Because if the aliens show up, they're like, you guys are fucking like slightly evolved apes. I mean, what the fuck is going on here? So they don't even probably want to be involved with us, right? But the truth of the matter is a very small group of people ruin it for the other people. So if you live in New York City, they're taking human defecation on the street or dropping heroin needles, but it's only like 3,000 or 4,000 people. So you let this woke, ridiculous legal culture allow 3,000 or 4,000 people to destroy the city. You could round them all up, clean up the streets, make the place safer. Yeah. I don't know why you would let 3,000 or 4,000 people terrorize the other 8.5 million people. So that's ridiculous. And then it's the same thing on a global scale. Putin is a malevolent, narcissist, sociopath, very bad dude. And you're letting him do this stuff. And, you didn't offer any vicious policy of deterrence or containment. And this is something you had to do over 30 years. And by the way, he's bought and paid for a lot of politicians, including politicians in this country. So, so that's why that happened. But, he's up against it now. He'll be gone. You don't have to read a lot about mob culture to know that he's upset the apple cart for the captains and his mob. They're not into the, hey man, I can't get to my French chalet and you're taking my private aircraft and you're taking my yacht. They're not into it. Okay. So they're going to put a hurt on him.
Yeah.
No, he's not making it out.
It is interesting, right? It's like the cancel culture canceled one of the biggest names, of course. And I loved what you were saying, really, just about being your authentic self. I think that's why, in this world of CNN and Fox, I think both sides are they get paid to be dramatic and to sensationalize everything, right? And so,
yes,
it's been really refreshing hearing voices like yourself. And I remember that interview, and I loved it. I was like, this guy's so refreshing. It sounds different, right? And like that's, I think, why Joe Rogan's been so successful too. Is like, he'll bring on people from both sides and people that mainstream media may not, bring up because of that reason, right? And so I'm just curious too. You mentioned some, you got fired from the White House, but like I guess, and you gave a few examples. But what do you think like the hardest part, whether it's political and in nature or even in business, that you've had in your head, kind of is like the hardest thing that like a catalyst for what made you learn, I guess, moving forward in terms of like the hardest thing you had to deal with?
Well, let's talk about Joe Rogan for a second.
Yeah.
So Joe Rogan, because I do listen to him and I'm very impressed with him. And I love the way he questions people. And I think there's an open-mindedness to what he's doing. I'm not in love with the anti-science stuff. I wish that we had an objective standard on some of that stuff. And I think that's where he got himself in trouble. But here's something that Joe Rogan did, which I unbelievably admire. hey, I got that wrong. I apologize for getting that wrong. Let's go forward. Now, anybody that hasn't gotten something wrong, raise your hand. You can throw the first rock. Okay. But I've gotten so many things wrong in my life. You guys don't have the time in your podcast or the year or your lifetime to hear all the things that I've gotten wrong. And so my thing for people is you get something wrong, you have a failure or a setback, you own it and you move on. So the worst decisions, though, I think are pride-based decisions, you know. Well, Donald Trump's offering you to be the White House communications director. You're not suited for the job. Why are you taking the job? Well, I'm taking the job because my ego is speaking. I went to Harvard Law School and Tufts University from a blue collar family. Now I've got a chance to work for the American president. I've built 2 successful businesses in the United States. I'm going to go work for the American president. Well, the American president's a nut job. Well, no, that's okay. That doesn't fit my narrative. This is my narrative. This is my ego. This is my egocentrism. And so I think that's where you make very big mistakes. And of course, I made a colossal mistake there, both in judgment and, too impetuous, all of that sort of stuff. So that's number one. But my biggest mistake was not the Trump White House or anything like that. My biggest mistake, frankly, was the situation with my wife. Ultimately, I loved her. She loves me. We love each other. And there was a series of miscommunications and missteps. And so what I would tell people is you got people that you really love, pay attention. Don't get distracted. Stop doom scrolling. Okay. You got someone you really love in your life, drop the situation and be present with the person.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you do that, you're going to be well served. If you don't do that, you could have a breach in something that's very dear to you. And so, but again, you make the mistake, own the mistake and see if you can repair it. And I was lucky to do that. And so another lesson for pounding the table, you got to stay in things. Don't be in the disposable business. You're disposing your razor, you're throwing out your paper plate and your plastic cup and your water bottle for your bottled water, but don't throw your relationships out, relationships go up and down. They can be uneven. The contributions can be uneven, but don't give up on them. Work at them, and that's a big lesson for me, in terms of where I am.
I just got married this in August.
All right, well, congratulations.
I took that one to heart. I was really taking that one in.
Work on it because, you're trying to build your career. You'll likely have children. So there's a level of distraction there. You don't need the phone on all day staring at the phone and you're talking to a phoneaholic and a phone addict,
right?
Who happens to, I'm trying to be a recovering phone addict, right?
Yep. Man, that hit me too. Like I recently went through a breakup as well. So I definitely took that one in. So let's move over to something
switching gears.
That you're really, really, really passionate about. I know you love crypto. So in January, you told CNBC to take a chill pill, stay long Bitcoin, other cryptos like Algo and ETH. And you said you think you're going to be very well served long term in those investments. Any social or political barriers, that you see hindering the growth of crypto, besides the Fed and liquidity and risk on, risk off correlation, all that kind of stuff?
Well, look, I'm a big believer in the space. I'm a big believer in the future and the progress that the blockchain is going to make for the society. I think those coins are going to be successful. Some of them trade terribly right now. Algo has traded terribly. It's off 60-ish% from its high. I think we've got a big seller in there. Somebody that bought the algos very early and have now decided that they're capitulating. So I don't know when that selling is going to abate. I think the technology is robust. I think it will be successful. It's got all the ingredients to be successful, but it has a really bad group of holders, if you will. It has weak holders in the portfolio. So
paper hands.
Yeah, hopefully we can shake those guys out. But the other guys, and I think what I would say to you is, this is an early adoption technology. This is not an inflation hedge. It's not a
Exactly.
full-fledged currency. This is Facebook early on, Google early on, Amazon goes public in 1997. If you had a $10,000 investment, it's worth 21 million today. But man, you had to go through 8 periods of time where you lost half your money, one period of time where you lost 90% of your money. And so what I would say to you guys is, you got to be in it, and you got to be patient, and you got to lock it away. There was a great movie years ago, and I'm going to draw a blank on it, but Brendan Fraser was in the movie with Christopher Walken. Okay, he played the dad of the wife and of the wife of Brendan Fraser, and they were going into a bomb shelter. Okay, and because they thought it was 1962. And they were going into a bomb shelter because there was a war going to break out. I guess it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so the name of the movie was Blast from the Past.
Yeah, I was thinking. It's not Biodome. I was like, wait, something else.
All right, so the movie was in 1999. Brendan Fraser, Alicia Silverstone. It was a rom-com. Okay, but what ends up happening is they're living underground, and they send Brendan Fraser up from underground. And of course, he meets Alicia Silverstone, but he's lived underground for his entire life. And, his father says, if the world is still there, here's the key to the safe deposit box. And he goes to the safe deposit box and he opens the box, and there's IBM and Bell Telegram, which, telephone, which became AT&T, and all these great stocks.
Right.
And so there's a situation where they don't sell a share. They don't think about it. They're in the bomb shelter for 30 years, but the guy had these stocks, and the bank manager looks at Brendan Fraser. He says, yeah, I think he got $450 million of stock. The point being is, like, if you bought Apple Computer in 1988, and you went into a bomb shelter, and you came out of the bomb shelter today, 34 years later, you're like, that was an awesome thing. You missed Steve Jobs leaving, you missed the near bankruptcy, and you've got a $2 trillion company on your hands. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm trying to help people think about this stuff very, very long term. Don't watch it. Either get long it and have it as a 5-year play, and write it down to zero. Say, okay, put 5% of my net worth in this. I've got 95 cents left. It is worthless. I'll never see the money again. Let me put it away. Don't look at it. I don't look at it every day.
Right.
How do you say? And if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it because, I've got client money in it. I'm talking about my own personal investments. I don't look at it every day.
So I'll go off script a little bit from some of the questions we had, because I think, given our audience, whether it's crypto, whether it's DeFi or probably more so for crypto and for stocks, from a psychological standpoint, it sounds easy to go into a bomb shelter, come out 30 years later, but there's bomb shelter, the bomb shelter doesn't exist in people's head. There's a bomb going off right now, literally and metaphorically, within the stock market.
Everybody is a long-term investor until they have short-term losses, obviously. And the minute they got the short-term losses, they want to set their hair on fire, and they want to run around in a circle, and they want to be mad at everybody. And I think it's a terrible, terrible mistake. If it was easy, everybody would have a private plane. Everybody would be on a yacht. It's not easy. This is a game that requires discipline, analysis, toughness. This is a game where if you're right on the fundamentals and the market's going against you, or there's variables outside of your control, like a global war, you got to stay in there. You know what I mean? You can't flinch.
Yeah.
When you get to Paris Island as a Marine and you hear gunshots, you're scared. You want to run away from the bullets, but you're trained for the 8 weeks to run towards the bullets. You have to do that in investing.
I love that. That was really cool. Yeah. And just to touch on that, I was looking at data that is showing that, the best performing accounts at all these brokerages are people who are dead. So definitely right to that point that you were saying there, that's surprising to me. I read that and pretty shocked.
Oh yeah, it doesn't surprise me because if you're dead, you're not making impetuous short-term decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
Debt is forever, guys. Live your life, and remember what Mel Brooks said about life. Relax. None of us are getting out of here alive.
Exactly.
It's a great line.
My dad says
Live
death
your
and
life.
taxes. Death and taxes. So coming back to crypto a little bit, I know Skybridge has worked with First Trust. Excuse me. Let me do that again. 3, 2, 1. Coming back to crypto real quick. Skybridge, I know, has worked with First Trust to launch the First Trust Skybridge Bitcoin and Ethereum funds, in addition to a crypto industry and the digital, economy ETF. So for those of, out there that are listening that maybe not know about some of these areas of investing that you can get into, what are some of the upsides to investors choosing something like this as an investment product over just buying something directly on Coinbase, for example?
Well, I'm an old timer now, right? I'm doing this 34 years. So my clients are also likely to be old timers. You're of the age where you should go to Coinbase, buy the stock, buy the cryptocurrency, hold it and put it away. But I think the people I'm talking to, they probably are not as sophisticated as you guys are in all of the new technologies. And they're probably more comfortable with me and me holding it for them and having an accountant and an auditor in a private partnership with a recognition that we're going to convert that private partnership into an ETF. When and if, and I predict it'll happen this year, the SEC allows for it.
Yeah, no, I'm dealing. So I actually switched over to the crypto industry. I work for a company called Prime Trust, and it's really interesting seeing traditional IRAs and wealth managers trying to, tackle this, right? And I think a lot of what you're saying rings true. Is like you're talking to a lot of these guys, and their customer base has no idea. Like my parents are just figuring out how to text, right now. So let alone getting into crypto or DeFi for that matter. That's not happening. So I guess, Algo is one that I actually knew of, right? But, everyone knows Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera. Why Algo and I guess some of these more alternative coins out there? Like, how do you go about, analyzing these, right? They don't have like the fundamentals of a stock. So you're looking at some of the technology, or how do you kind of understand which one you're looking at?
Well, so and again, I don't want to bore everybody, but like Bitcoin has its strengths and weaknesses. Ethereum has its strengths and weaknesses. One of the dilemmas, which they call the trilemma, there are 3 issues these guys are trying to solve for: scalability, security, interoperability, right? Those things they're trying to solve for. And so, Bitcoin has limited, frankly. ETH has a lot of that. And ETH, you can create a lot of smart contracts on and layer on top of it to do transactions. So, if you read the white paper from Silvio Micali, the founder of Algorand, he used his technology training, his cryptographic experience. He won the Turing Award, which is like the Nobel Prize for computer programming. And he solved for that trilemma. And so he's got a great technology. It is unforkable. It has little to no gas fees. It has a net negative carbon footprint. Okay, so it's net negative carbon. And so it is got all of the properties that make it better. Now, ETH to me is like the Microsoft operating system for a PC. Apple's operating system was way better, but it needed to catch up. ETH to me, you guys aren't old enough to remember this, but when I was logging on the internet, your age, I was using America Online.
Yeah, I'm old enough.
I was using Alta Vista. And then this upstart came along called Google. I don't know if you ever heard of that company, but in 1998, Google came on the scene and people were like, well, why do I need Google? I mean, I've got this other thing. And I'm logging on with Prodigy or AOL. And people are like, well, Google's going to be way faster. The search mechanisms and the logarithms and the rankings are going to be way more improved. And lo and behold, Google took 90% of the market share in search. And so I think we're just so early. Could a technology like Algorand leapfrog everything and eclipse those others because of the technical properties of Algorand?
Yeah.
However, up against that, though, they have a shitty start because I don't think they allocated properly. And this is the classic dilemma for the academic. He's trying to do the right thing, and he probably didn't put it together the way ETH did or Solana did, and they didn't lock up these people long enough to really get the traction needed in the marketplace. So, can we clean that up now? And can that happen? Maybe. I mean, I hope it can. We're working on a couple of interesting things for them, which I think will be very positive.
Interesting. So it's like a roadshow almost for a company going to VCs. That you're saying like the initial buyers that are buying bulks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. I mean, I think a lot of people are very gung-ho about ETH and Bitcoin, but to your point of something could just leapfrog against it, it's very possible. I mean, that's how history is. Something could just come out with way better tech and just get way more traction and be the next ETH or Bitcoin. So I'm actually always just scanning and looking for that. Yeah, I didn't know where else to go with that. I'm off the cuff right now, buddy.
You're good. All right.
Good.
I was going to ask about the Kevin OLeary part. So, all right, I'll edit this part out. All right, 3, 2, 1. So Anthony, Kevin OLeary recently said on the news that he believes crypto platforms are going to eventually be the 12th largest sector in the S&P 500. Right? Is that something you agree with? I know you're very deep into the game and you talk about crypto quite a bit. Are you ready to agree with Kevin on something like this? Why, or why not? I guess.
Well, for the most part, I am. I love Kevin. I think he's an amazing guy. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. I'll tell you that there's a lot of great things about Kevin, but one of the best things is when he gets something wrong, he has enough maturity, emotional self-confidence to say, hey, I got this wrong, and he reverses course. And so if you were with Kevin in late 2020, is very negatively biased towards crypto, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general. But to his credit and his intellectual curiosity, he did a tremendous amount of homework and he did a 180. And so that to me is what's going to start happening. Again, taking you back to memory lane, a guy by the name of Bill Gates hated the internet. He said the internet was a fad. It was not going to last. It's just ridiculous. And then it dawned on him that he got it wrong. And there's a very famous scene in Microsoft's history where Gates turns to somebody and says, well, how many employees are there in Silicon Valley working on the internet? And somebody said 3,000. He said, okay, we're going to see that open land right here in Redmond on our campus. We're going to build a building there. We're going to put 5,000 or 6,000. We're going to double the amount and we're going to compete with them. The point being is, when you're wrong and you make a reversal, I think that's your finest hour because you're going to get things wrong. When you're wrong and you go into missile lock of stubbornness and stupidity, that's a really bad sign. But Kevin, reverse course. I think he's going to be long-term right. I think Kevin and I probably shade difference on timing. I think he thinks it's going to happen faster than I do. I think these things have a tendency to take longer than we'd like to. It's like building a house or renovating your apartment. The contractor tells you it's going to be done in 6 months. You better budget 12.
Right.
Okay. And after 18 months, it's done. And you know what I'm talking about. So these things just take a long time. If you had been on this podcast with me a year ago, I would have said there would have been widespread institutional adoption for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin by March of 2022. That did not happen. So we have to be cautious and we have to be measured, but I do think the trend is there and I think it will happen. It's just a matter of when.
Real quick on that, Tony, before you pop into the other one. So how much do you think that has to do with bureaucracy versus actual just genuine adoption and risk tolerance? Or it's fine if it's a mix of both, but I'm just curious from your side.
Bureaucracy
in terms of government,
level,
like actual from a regulatory.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, some of it is definitely that. I mean, they're cautious, they're concerned. Institutions and regulators take this to the bank. The number one axiomatic fact, please do not make me look stupid. That's number one. Number two axiomatic fact, please don't put me in a position where I could get fired. Okay, so I don't want to put Bitcoin in the portfolio. Bitcoin goes to zero. I look stupid. I get fired, right? I don't want to take on this regulatory issue right now because if I get it wrong and investors get hurt, I look stupid. I get fired. So what we have to do is we have to calm these people down and explain to them that, as Stephen Mnuchin said, the former Secretary of Treasury, there are use cases for this stuff, and you better understand what they are.
Love that. You have to go in a minute. I just have to ask one question really quick about NFTs.
Yeah,
that's definitely like a huge, huge reason why ETH did so well the last year. Most people think it's a fad, but to that point you just said about Bill Gates thinking the same thing, and knowing that Bored Apes are a $5 billion valuation trying to get funding right now. What do you think about that?
Well, some of it, I don't know if it's Bored Apes. I don't know who it is, but some of it's going to crash. Okay. There's 8,000 cryptocurrencies. We're going to get down to 25 of them. You could have opened a book in the 1910s, 1900 to 1910, and you open up a phone book, they're all motors in the companies because the motor industry was a hot thing at the time. You were switching from horse and carriages to horseless carriages. And so everybody had a hot name called motor. 100 years later, everybody was .com. This is a .com, that's a .com, pets.com. Many of those things had bad business models and they went out of business. The interesting thing about what's going on right now, again, these are my opinions, 8,000 cryptocurrencies, you're going to get down to 25 of them. So is Bored Apes going to be a survivor? I actually going to make a prediction here and say yes, because it's unique art. The way they did it, the way they designed it, and they've created this very robust community. And I'm gonna end it on this thought, okay? So you'll get where I am on the NFTs. There is a piece of cardboard. It's about this big. It was printed. It was cut and printed in the early 1950s. So it was in the mid-century of the last century. And they put 4-color process print on it. And on one side was a picture of Mickey Mantle in his rookie season. And on the other side was his statistics from the minor league and his height and weight. A little piece of paper, cardboard, 1952 rookie year, just recently sold for $5.2 million US. So if you tell me that there isn't an opportunity, if you tell me that there isn't a future for NFTs, you are sorely mistaken. And just think of that.
Yeah.
And
couldn't agree
I
more.
love you guys. I wish you well, but I got to take this. And God bless you guys. All right.
Thank you, Mooch.
Thank
You're
you
the
so
man.
much, Mooch.
All right.
Appreciate it.